This video contains audio content only. There are no visual elements or images accompanying the audio. If you're expecting to see video footage, please note that this is an intentional audio-only presentation. We recommend listening to this content rather than watching the screen. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy the audio. Introduction. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's comprehensive exploration of one of Earth's most extraordinary yet imperiled creatures, the pangolin. I'm thrilled to guide you through the latest scientific understanding of these remarkable animals, which represent a unique evolutionary journey spanning millions of years. The pangolin's story is both fascinating and urgent. These distinctive mammals, often described as walking pine cones or scaly anteaters, have existed on our planet for millions of years, yet today they face unprecedented threats to their survival. What makes this exploration particularly timely is that despite being the world's most trafficked wild mammals, pangolins remain relatively unknown to much of the global population. Today's discussion will take us on a journey that spans continents and disciplines. We'll explore everything from their ancient evolutionary origins to the cutting-edge technologies being deployed to protect them. Our exploration will reveal how these creatures have adapted to survive for millions of years, only to face their greatest challenge in the modern era. The scientific community's understanding of pangolins has expanded dramatically in recent years, driven by urgent conservation needs and technological advances. We're witnessing unprecedented international collaboration in pangolin research and conservation, from the rainforests of Central Africa to the tropical regions of Southeast Asia. These efforts are revealing new insights into pangolin biology, behavior, and ecology, while also highlighting the complex challenges of protecting them. In the next hour, we'll delve into 6 major themes that encompass the current state of pangolin research and conservation. We'll begin with their evolutionary history and surprising relationships to other mammals, which challenges many common assumptions. We'll then examine their unique biological adaptations that make them truly one of a kind in the animal kingdom. Our discussion will also cover their current conservation status and the various threats they face, followed by an in-depth look at the global trafficking crisis that threatens their existence. We'll also explore the innovative technologies and conservation strategies being developed to protect these species, from artificial intelligence-powered monitoring systems to community-based conservation initiatives. Finally, we'll examine their cultural significance and the growing global awareness movement that aims to secure their future. Whether you're a wildlife enthusiast, conservation professional, or simply curious about these extraordinary animals, this discussion will provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the latest research and conservation efforts surrounding pangolins. The science behind pangolin conservation touches on numerous fields, from genetics and ecology to social science and technology, making it a fascinating case study in modern conservation challenges and solutions. As we proceed through these topics, you'll discover how the fight to save pangolins exemplifies both the challenges and opportunities in modern wildlife conservation. Their story highlights the intricate connections between scientific research, technological innovation, international policy, and community engagement in wildlife protection. Let's begin our exploration of these remarkable creatures and the urgent work being done to ensure their survival for future generations. 1. Evolution and taxonomic relationships. The evolutionary story of pangolins represents one of the most fascinating chapters in mammalian evolution, spanning approximately 80 million years of independent development. This remarkable journey has produced creatures that seem almost mythical in their uniqueness, yet their evolutionary history reveals deep connections to familiar mammalian groups. Recent genetic research has revolutionized our understanding of pangolin evolution, revealing surprising relationships that challenge earlier taxonomic classifications. Despite their superficial resemblance to anteaters and armadillos, pangolins belong to the order Pholidota and are most closely related to the order Carnivora, the group including cats, dogs, and bears. This relationship places them within the larger group called Ferae, suggesting that pangolins and carnivores shared a common ancestor roughly 80 million years ago, during the late Cretaceous period. The evolution of pangolin scales represents one of nature's most remarkable examples of convergent evolution. While at first glance these scales might appear similar to reptilian armor, they are actually modified hairs composed of keratin. This adaptation occurred independently from the development of armor in other mammals like armadillos, demonstrating how similar environmental pressures can lead to comparable solutions through different evolutionary pathways. The scales grow throughout the pangolin's life, continuously being worn down and replaced, much like human fingernails. What makes pangolins particularly interesting from an evolutionary perspective is their highly specialized anatomical features. Their skull structure has evolved to accommodate an extraordinary tongue that can extend to lengths greater than their entire body. This tongue, which attaches near the pelvis rather than in the mouth as in most mammals, represents a unique evolutionary solution to the challenge of specialized insect ivory. The fact that this adaptation appears in all pangolin species suggests it evolved early in their evolutionary history, perhaps even in their common ancestor. The fossil record of pangolins, though sparse, provides fascinating glimpses into their evolutionary history. The earliest known pangolin fossils date back to the Eocene epoch, roughly 50 million years ago, suggesting that the group had already developed many of their distinctive features by this time. These early pangolins showed remarkable similarities to modern species, indicating that the basic pangolin body plan has remained relatively stable over millions of years, a testament to its evolutionary success. The geographic distribution of pangolin species also tells an important evolutionary story. The current distribution of pangolins, with 4 species in Asia and 4 in Africa, suggests a complex history of dispersal and diversification. Genetic evidence indicates that the split between Asian and African pangolin lineages occurred millions of years ago, leading to distinct evolutionary trajectories on each continent. This separation has resulted in subtle but important differences between African and Asian species, such as the presence of bristles between scales in Asian pangolins that are absent in their African relatives. Understanding pangolin evolution has important implications for their conservation. The long, independent evolutionary history of these animals means they represent a unique branch of mammalian evolution. Their loss would not just mean the extinction of several species, but the disappearance of an entire order of mammals that has existed for tens of millions of years. This evolutionary distinctiveness adds urgency to conservation efforts, as we risk losing not just individual species, but an entire evolutionary legacy. Recent advances in genetic analysis have also revealed previously unknown diversity within pangolin populations, suggesting that there might be additional cryptic species yet to be formally described. This hidden diversity adds another layer of complexity to conservation efforts, as it suggests we might be losing unique evolutionary lineages before we even recognize them as distinct. The evolutionary story of pangolins also provides important insights into their potential for adaptation and resilience in the face of environmental change. Their long history of survival through various climatic and environmental shifts suggests a remarkable adaptability. However, the unprecedented rate of current environmental change, combined with direct human pressures, poses challenges unlike anything they have faced in their evolutionary history. 2. Pangolin biology and characteristics. The biological characteristics of pangolins represent some of the most specialized adaptations found in any mammal. From their distinctive scaled armor to their highly specialized feeding apparatus, every aspect of pangolin anatomy and physiology reflects millions of years of evolutionary refinement for their unique ecological niche. Let's start with their most distinctive feature, their scales. Covering most of their body except for their undersides, these overlapping plates are composed of keratin, the same material found in human fingernails and hair. These scales make up approximately 20% of the animal's total body weight and grow continuously throughout their lives. The structure of these scales is remarkably sophisticated. They are sharp-edged, incredibly hard, and arranged in a way that provides maximum protection while maintaining flexibility. When threatened, pangolins can roll into a tight ball, presenting an almost impenetrable armor to potential predators. The scales also have microscopic ridges and other structures that appear to enhance their defensive capabilities and may even have antimicrobial properties. The feeding adaptations of pangolins are equally remarkable. Their tongues are engineering marvels of nature, capable of extending up to 40 centimeters in length and covered with sticky saliva perfectly adapted for capturing insects. Unlike most mammals, where the tongue attaches in the mouth, the pangolin's tongue is anchored deep in its chest cavity, attached near the last pair of ribs. This unusual arrangement allows for the extraordinary length and mobility of their tongue. When retracted, the tongue is stored in a special sheath that extends down into the chest cavity. Complementing their specialized tongue, pangolins possess powerful forelimbs equipped with robust claws perfect for breaking into insect nests. These claws are so long and curved that pangolins actually walk on their knuckles to protect them. Their sense of smell is highly developed, compensating for relatively poor eyesight, and they can seal their nostrils and ears when raiding insect nests to prevent attacks from their prey. Their stomach is similarly specialized, with keratinous spines and small stones that help grind up their insect prey in lieu of teeth. The digestive system of pangolins is particularly fascinating. Having no teeth, they rely on a muscular stomach lined with keratinous spines and containing small stones, gastroliths, to mechanically break down their food. This unique adaptation allows them to process the massive quantities of insects they consume. An adult pangolin can eat up to 70 million insects per year. Their dietary specialization is so extreme that they typically focus on just a few species of ants and termites, even when other options are available. Pangolin reproduction and development present another suite of fascinating biological adaptations. Unlike many other similarly sized mammals, pangolins typically give birth to only one offspring at a time, though twins occasionally occur. Newborn pangolins already have scales, though they are soft and pale, hardening within days of birth. Perhaps most endearing is the way young pangolins ride on their mother's tail, gripping it with their own tail as she forages. This behavior not only protects the young but also appears to be important for learning foraging techniques. The different species of pangolins have evolved various specialized adaptations to their particular habitats. While all pangolins share the same basic body plan, there are significant variations between species. Ground-dwelling species tend to be larger and more robust, with powerful forelimbs for digging. Arboreal species are generally smaller and more agile, with longer tails that act as a fifth limb for climbing. The Sunda pangolin, for example, can use its prehensile tail to hang from branches while stripping bark to access insects. Their metabolic adaptations are equally noteworthy. Most pangolin species are nocturnal, with complex physiological adaptations for regulating body temperature and energy use during their inactive daytime periods. Some species, particularly those in cooler climates, may enter torpor during cold weather, lowering their metabolic rate to conserve energy. Their low metabolic rate may also be an adaptation to their specialized diet, allowing them to survive on the relatively low-energy food source of ants and termites. Recent research has also revealed fascinating aspects of pangolin behavior and intelligence. Despite their reputation as simple, primitive creatures, pangolins show remarkable problem-solving abilities in accessing their prey and navigating their environment. They demonstrate complex spatial memory, remembering the locations of productive feeding sites and safe refuges across their home ranges. Some species have even been observed using their tails to test water depth before swimming, showing sophisticated risk assessment behavior. 3. Conservation status and threats. The conservation status of pangolins represents one of the most critical wildlife preservation challenges of our time. All 8 extant pangolin species face significant threats to their survival, with their population trends showing alarming declines across their entire range. The gravity of their situation is reflected in current IUCN Red List classifications. 3 species are listed as critically endangered, 3 as endangered, and 2 as vulnerable. The magnitude of the crisis becomes clear when we examine the numbers. Conservative estimates suggest that more than 1 million pangolins have been taken from the wild in the past decade alone, a figure that likely represents only a fraction of the actual losses. The rate of decline is particularly severe in Asian species, where some populations have experienced reductions of up to 80% in just 2 decades. This devastating decline has led to what conservationists call the Asian shift, where trafficking networks have increasingly turned to African pangolin species to meet demand as Asian populations become depleted. Habitat loss presents a significant threat to pangolin survival, though its impact varies by species and region. Deforestation, agricultural expansion, and urban development have fragmented pangolin habitats, creating isolated populations that become more vulnerable to local extinction. The conversion of natural forests to palm oil plantations in Southeast Asia has been particularly devastating for species like the Sunda pangolin. While some pangolins can adapt to modified landscapes, the loss of their preferred prey species and increased human access to their habitat often make such areas ecological traps. However, the most immediate and severe threat to pangolin survival comes from poaching and illegal wildlife trafficking. The scale of this threat is staggering. Between 2000 and 2019, it's estimated that an average of 20 tons of pangolin scales and bodies were seized annually in illegal shipments. These seizures likely represent only 10 to 20% of the actual trafficking volume, suggesting the true scale of the trade is far larger. The sophistication of trafficking networks has also increased, with criminal organizations using complex routing systems and modern technology to evade detection. What makes the trafficking crisis particularly challenging is its economic drivers. Pangolin meat is considered a delicacy in some cultures and can command prices exceeding $300 per kilogram in high-end restaurants. Their scales, used in traditional medicine despite no scientific evidence of medicinal value, can fetch up to $3,000 per kilogram on black markets. These high prices create powerful incentives for poaching, particularly in regions where economic opportunities are limited. The challenges of pangolin conservation are compounded by their biological characteristics. Their low reproductive rate, typically one offspring per year, means populations recover very slowly from losses. Their specialized diet makes them extremely difficult to maintain in captivity, limiting the effectiveness of captive breeding as a conservation strategy. Of those brought into captivity, many die within months due to stress and dietary issues, making rescue and rehabilitation efforts particularly challenging. Climate change presents an additional, looming threat to pangolin survival. While the direct impacts are still being studied, changes in temperature and rainfall patterns are likely to affect the distribution and abundance of their insect prey. Some species may face challenges adapting to new environmental conditions, particularly those with specific habitat requirements or limited dispersal abilities. The interaction between climate change and other threats may create synergistic effects that accelerate population declines. Disease also poses a potential threat to pangolin populations. Recent research has identified various coronaviruses in pangolin populations, raising concerns about both the animal's health and potential zoonotic disease transmission. The stress of capture and trafficking may make pangolins more susceptible to disease, while the conditions under which they are transported and stored can facilitate disease spread. Conservation efforts face additional challenges due to gaps in our scientific understanding of pangolins. Their nocturnal nature and elusive behavior make population assessments difficult, leading to uncertainty in estimating both population sizes and rates of decline. This lack of baseline data complicates efforts to measure the effectiveness of conservation interventions and adjust strategies accordingly. The overlap between pangolin habitat and human settlements creates additional conservation challenges. As human populations expand into pangolin habitat, human-wildlife conflict increases. While pangolins rarely cause direct conflicts with humans, their presence in agricultural areas can lead to accidental capture in traps or deliberate killing. Additionally, the expansion of road networks into formerly remote areas provides poachers with easier access to pangolin populations. These multiple, interacting threats create a complex conservation challenge that requires coordinated responses at local, national, and international levels. While international trade in pangolins has been banned since 2017 through CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, enforcement remains a significant challenge. The combination of high market value, sophisticated trafficking networks, and limited enforcement resources creates a perfect storm that continues to drive pangolin populations toward extinction. 4. Trafficking crisis and trade. The global trafficking crisis facing pangolins represents one of the most complex and severe challenges in wildlife conservation today. The scale and sophistication of this illegal trade network has transformed what was once sustainable traditional hunting into an industrial-scale operation that threatens the survival of all pangolin species. The numbers associated with pangolin trafficking are staggering. Conservative estimates indicate that between 2000 and 2019, more than 895,000 pangolins were trafficked globally, though experts believe this represents only a fraction of the actual trade. Individual seizures can be massive. Some operations have recovered more than 10 tons of scales in a single raid, representing thousands of individual animals. The trade has also shown alarming growth, with seizures of African pangolin scales increasing by more than 6,000% between 2014 and 2018. The trafficking network operates across multiple continents through sophisticated criminal enterprises. The typical route begins with local hunters or poachers in Africa or Asia who capture the animals using traditional methods or modern snares. These pangolins then pass through a complex chain of middlemen who consolidate smaller shipments into larger ones. The products are often concealed within legal cargo, using increasingly sophisticated methods to avoid detection. Common techniques include mixing pangolin scales with plastic waste, hiding them in timber shipments, or declaring them as other products like nuts or shells. The economics of the trade reveal why it has become so pervasive. A single pangolin can be worth several $100s at the source, while its scales alone might fetch thousands on the final market. This value chain creates powerful incentives at every level, from rural hunters facing economic hardship to international criminal networks seeking high profit opportunities. The high value-to-weight ratio of pangolin scales makes them particularly attractive to traffickers, as a relatively small shipment can generate significant profits. The demand driving this trade is multifaceted. In some Asian countries, pangolin meat is considered a delicacy and status symbol, with a single dish costing hundreds of dollars in high-end restaurants. However, the primary driver of large-scale trafficking is the use of pangolin scales in traditional medicine. Despite no scientific evidence of medicinal efficacy, scales are prescribed for various conditions, from arthritis to cancer. This demand has remained strong despite international trade bans and increasing awareness of the conservation crisis. The shift in trafficking patterns over the past decade reveals the adaptability of these criminal networks. As Asian pangolin populations have declined due to overexploitation, traffickers have increasingly targeted African species. This Asian shift has led to the establishment of new trafficking routes and networks, often piggybacking on existing illegal trade in ivory and other wildlife products. The involvement of organized crime has brought sophisticated techniques like money laundering, fake documentation, and corruption of officials. Enforcement faces numerous challenges. Many countries lack the resources and expertise to effectively combat wildlife trafficking. Port authorities often lack specialized equipment to detect pangolin products, and customs officials may not be trained to identify them. The use of multiple transit countries makes tracking and intercepting shipments difficult, while corruption can undermine enforcement efforts at various levels. The COVID-19 pandemic temporarily disrupted some trafficking networks due to travel restrictions and increased border security. However, this disruption also led to adaptations in trafficking methods, including increased use of maritime routes and online trading platforms. Some evidence suggests that stockpiling during the pandemic may have actually increased pressure on pangolin populations in certain areas. The role of technology in both facilitating and combating trafficking has become increasingly important. Social media and messaging apps are used to coordinate illegal trade, while cryptocurrency is sometimes used for payments to avoid detection. However, technology is also being employed to fight trafficking, with artificial intelligence being used to detect illegal wildlife products in X-ray scans and analyze shipping patterns to identify suspicious activity. International cooperation has become crucial in addressing the trafficking crisis. Initiatives like Operation Thunderball, coordinated by Interpol and the World Customs Organization, have led to significant seizures and arrests. However, successful prosecution remains challenging due to weak legislation in some countries and difficulties in gathering admissible evidence. The economic impact of the pandemic has raised concerns about increased trafficking pressure, as economic hardship may drive more people to participate in illegal wildlife trade. Additionally, reduced funding for conservation and enforcement during the crisis may have created opportunities for trafficking networks to expand their operations. Recent innovations in forensic techniques have provided new tools for combating trafficking. DNA analysis can now determine the species and origin of seized pangolin scales, helping authorities identify trafficking routes and target enforcement efforts. These techniques have revealed that some shipments contain scales from multiple species and regions, indicating the complex nature of trafficking networks. 5. Cultural significance and awareness. The relationship between humans and pangolins spans centuries and cultures, creating a complex tapestry of beliefs, practices, and traditions that both threaten and potentially support their conservation. Understanding these cultural dimensions is crucial for developing effective conservation strategies that resonate with local communities and broader society. Throughout history, pangolins have occupied a unique place in various cultural traditions. In many African societies, pangolins have been viewed as sacred or magical creatures, with their appearance considered an omen. Some tribes believe pangolin sightings predict drought, while others see them as harbingers of good fortune. These traditional beliefs have historically contributed to their protection in some regions, where cultural taboos prevented overexploitation. The name, pangolin, itself reflects cultural connections, derived from the Malay word, penguling, meaning one who rolls up. This etymology highlights how deeply these animals are embedded in local languages and cultures. In different regions, they've earned various nicknames, from artichokes with legs to scaly anteaters, each reflecting human attempts to understand and categorize these unique creatures. However, cultural beliefs have also contributed to their decline. In some Asian cultures, pangolin meat is considered a delicacy and status symbol, while their scales are valued in traditional medicine. These cultural practices, sustainable when populations were healthy and human pressure was low, have become devastating when combined with modern hunting methods and commercial trade networks. The challenge lies in addressing these traditional uses while respecting cultural heritage. Modern conservation efforts increasingly recognize the importance of cultural context in protecting pangolins. Successful programs often incorporate traditional knowledge and cultural practices rather than attempting to override them. For example, some projects employ former hunters as wildlife guards, utilizing their tracking skills and local knowledge for conservation rather than exploitation. Public awareness campaigns have evolved significantly in recent years. Early efforts focused simply on sharing information about pangolins' endangered status, but modern campaigns take a more nuanced approach. They highlight the animal's unique characteristics, their ecological importance, and their charismatic behaviors, helping to build emotional connections with these often overlooked creatures. Celebrity involvement has played a significant role in raising pangolin awareness. High-profile advocates have helped bring attention to their plight, with campaigns featuring well-known figures reaching millions of people. These efforts have been particularly effective in Asia, where celebrity influence can significantly impact public opinion and consumer behavior. Education programs targeting younger generations have shown promising results. School curriculums incorporating pangolin conservation have helped create a new generation of wildlife advocates. These programs often use innovative approaches, including interactive technologies, gaming elements, and social media engagement to make conservation messages more appealing and accessible. The role of social media in pangolin awareness cannot be overstated. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok have become powerful tools for sharing information about pangolins and their conservation. Viral videos of pangolins displaying their unique behaviors have helped humanize these animals for audiences who might never encounter them in the wild. Media coverage of pangolin conservation has also evolved. While early reporting often focused solely on trafficking statistics, modern coverage increasingly includes success stories, scientific discoveries, and human interest angles. This balanced approach helps maintain public interest while avoiding conservation fatigue. Traditional knowledge about pangolins is being increasingly valued and documented by researchers. Indigenous communities often possess detailed understanding of pangolin behavior, habitat preferences, and population patterns. Integrating this knowledge with scientific research has led to more effective conservation strategies and better engagement with local communities. The economic potential of pangolin conservation is gaining recognition. Some communities have developed ecotourism initiatives centered around pangolin habitat protection, providing alternative income sources to hunting. While pangolin's nocturnal nature makes direct viewing challenging, creative programs have found ways to engage tourists in conservation efforts. Religious institutions have begun playing a role in pangolin conservation. Some Buddhist temples in Asia have spoken out against the use of pangolin products, while Christian and Muslim leaders in Africa have incorporated conservation messages into their teachings. This religious engagement helps frame conservation in terms of moral and ethical responsibilities. Urban awareness initiatives have brought pangolin conservation to cities far from their natural habitats. Zoo programs, traveling exhibitions, and virtual reality experiences help urban dwellers connect with these animals and understand their conservation challenges. These programs are particularly important as global urbanization continues to separate people from wildlife. Looking forward, cultural attitudes toward pangolins continue to evolve. Growing awareness of their ecological importance and the threats they face is gradually shifting perceptions. However, changing deeply ingrained cultural practices and beliefs remains a long-term challenge requiring sustained, sensitive engagement. As we conclude our exploration of pangolin research and conservation, several critical themes emerge that highlight both the challenges and opportunities in protecting these remarkable creatures for future generations. First and foremost, the pangolin crisis represents a crucial test case for modern conservation approaches. The combination of ancient cultural practices, organized crime, habitat loss, and limited scientific knowledge creates a perfect storm that threatens all 8 species. However, the response to this crisis has sparked unprecedented innovation in conservation technology and international cooperation. The evolution and biology of pangolins remind us of the extraordinary diversity of life on Earth and what we stand to lose. These animals represent over 80 million years of independent evolution, developing unique adaptations that make them irreplaceable components of their ecosystems. Their potential extinction would mean not just the loss of species, but the disappearance of an entire order of mammals, a branch of the tree of life that, once lost, can never be recovered. The trafficking crisis affecting pangolins highlights broader issues in wildlife conservation and international law enforcement. The sophisticated criminal networks involved in pangolin trafficking often overlap with other illegal activities, suggesting that solving this crisis requires addressing broader issues of international crime, poverty, and governance. The success or failure of pangolin conservation efforts could provide valuable lessons for protecting other threatened species. The technological innovations being deployed to protect pangolins demonstrate the potential for modern tools to revolutionize conservation. From artificial intelligence to environmental DNA sampling, these advances are creating new possibilities for understanding and protecting wildlife. However, the pangolin case also shows that technology alone isn't enough. Successful conservation requires integrating these tools with traditional knowledge and community engagement. Looking ahead, several key priorities emerge for pangolin conservation. 1. Strengthening international cooperation and law enforcement to combat trafficking. 2. Expanding the use of innovative technologies for monitoring and protection. 3. Increasing community engagement and sustainable economic alternatives. 4. Advancing scientific understanding of pangolin biology and ecology. 5. Developing more effective public awareness and education programs. For those interested in supporting pangolin conservation, there are multiple ways to get involved. Supporting reputable conservation organizations, spreading awareness about pangolin conservation, and advocating for stronger wildlife protection laws are all valuable contributions. Additionally, being mindful of the source of traditional medicines and avoiding products that might contain pangolin derivatives helps reduce demand. The story of pangolin conservation is still being written, and the next few years will be crucial in determining their fate. The growing global awareness of their plight, combined with advancing technology and strengthening international cooperation, provides hope. However, time is running out, and the intensity of conservation efforts must match the severity of the threats these unique animals face. As we end this discussion, it's worth reflecting on what pangolins represent, not just as fascinating creatures in their own right, but as symbols of the broader challenges facing wildlife conservation in the 21st century. Their fate will likely indicate our ability to balance human development with wildlife protection and to coordinate international efforts to save threatened species. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of pangolin research and conservation. If you found this information valuable, please consider sharing it with others and supporting pangolin conservation efforts. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave any questions or thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps spread awareness about these remarkable animals and the urgent need to protect them. Until next time, keep learning, keep caring, and keep working to protect our planet's extraordinary biodiversity.